This is the story of a small island paradise in the Sulu Sea, just off the coast of mainland Philippines, that goes by the name of Danjugan Island. Uninhabited and formed by limestone, this truly is an island that is rich in biodiversity. To begin this story, we must go high up into the canopy, the place where the light from the sun first touches. Up here, we'll find an array of birds, 72 species to be exact. With dense leaves and a variety of different tree species, it is easy to see why there is so much biodiversity. With such a thick coverage of plant life, sometimes you may need to use your ears to get a grasp of how many birds inhabit this island. Have a listen. How many different species do you hear? All of those birds would not be here if it were not for the habitat provided by these trees. These trees themselves take on incredible lives, from small beginnings on the forest floor, and then potentially decades of time spent waiting for their moment in which there is enough light penetrating through the canopy to then one day dominate the forest and stand tens of meters tall. And then they'll pass on their seed and their genetics many miles away. You could be sure that if you peeled back the bark from these trees, that you'd be face to face with all kinds of insects. Every corner, every ridge, every stick, every stone. Look hard enough and you'll find signs of life. Even that which is not alive has a sense of animation to it. You can see where life has been, where life has come from, where life might end, and then where life simply exists. These social ants form what is known as a superorganism. Individually, they might not achieve much, but together, they play incredible roles, intricate roles, that are pivotal to functioning ecosystems. Many insects choose to live more solitary lives, but they still need to find a mate. So what these luminous beetles do, they have the most incredible patterns and colours and will position themselves to attract their opposing sex. Others, though, might spend more of their time travelling the island floor, using their other senses and pheromones to locate a mate. And then some are lucky enough to have already found their mate. Can you hear that sound in the background? Yes, these are bats. Bats that have chosen all to live together in this cave. But this comes at a cost, because something else calls this cave home. There is at least 7 reticulated pythons that all snatch bats out of the air as they fly out for their nightly search for food. So if you're out scratching for food, you should always look and listen for what else might be out with you. Like this cone snail, using that trunk-like proboscis, it can shoot small, venomous harpoons, which are usually fatal for its prey, but can be fatal for humans too. And then this banded sea crate, which is known to paralyze its prey with its powerful venom before swallowing it whole. This story now returns to where life on Earth began, the oceans. Where the land turns to water, we often find seagrass ecosystems, and these are often undervalued. Seagrasses are primary producers, making food from sunlight. They stabilize coastal areas and stop erosion. They provide habitat, and they capture carbon at a faster rate than tropical forests. And now the next ecosystem we encounter is the coral reef. Coral reefs are amongst the most productive and biodiverse communities throughout the planet. Would you believe that although coral reefs only cover 1% of the entire ocean, they are home to almost 25% of all known marine species? These living structures need ideal conditions to exist. Requiring sunlight means that you will not find them at deeper points of the ocean. And they're incredibly slow growing too. Some reef structures around the world are thousands of years old. You might recognize this fish, the clownfish, from the movie Finding Nemo. Unfortunately, that film has resulted in people around the world wanting a clownfish in their home, leading to many clownfish species to be endangered. It is hard to imagine, but this entire reef was once threatened, and not too long ago either. It was overfished and sometimes using very damaging fishing techniques, such as dynamite fishing. But as you can see now, Danjugan Island and its surrounding waters are in good health, and a lot of this is because this island is a conservation island. It is dedicated to keeping nature as protected and healthy as it can, but also encouraging us humans to appreciate just how amazing and how important all of the environment is. Unfortunately, this story is not entirely a happy story, nor is the story near from over. I want to introduce you to the idea of impacts from afar. This Danjugan Island beach may look beautiful, but if you take a closer look, you'll see it's covered with plastic bottles and other kinds of rubbish. But where does this pollution come from? Every single one of these bottles comes from a different country around the world. That is 25 bottles from 25 different countries that have washed ashore on Danjugan Island. Much like this balloon that came from a party over 800 kilometers away. But physical pollution aside, there is another impact happening from afar that poses threats so catastrophic, so significant, so deadly. It's climate change.
Heat waves will become more intense.
Millions of people will be displaced by climate change over the next half-century.
Rising sea levels and dying coral reefs.
In fact, the Philippines already suffered when it was hit by the strongest ever tropical cyclone to make landfall, with 380 kilometer wind speeds, Typhoon Haiyan killed 6,340 people.
Scientists say Typhoon Haiyan is one of the strongest storms ever to make landfall. Some experts say man-made climate change is to blame. Bob Ward is from the Grantham Research Institute on Climate Change at the London School of Economics.
There's certainly strong circumstantial evidence because we know that the strength of tropical cyclones, hurricanes, typhoons depends very much on sea surface temperatures. They act as the fuel, and we've got very warm waters in the Pacific at the moment, which have been increasing because of climate change.
Ward says the intensity of storms seems to be increasing.
And those incredible coral reefs we explored earlier are at a massive risk from rising sea level temperatures. Coral bleaching events are becoming more and more common. Without immediate action on reducing emissions and limiting global temperatures to well below 2 degrees, scientists expect that all coral reefs of the world will be gone by the end of the century. Already on Danjugan Island, we've seen what was once a breeding ground for the very endangered turtle populations lose more and more beach, resulting in less turtles nesting. But as you can see, this island has very little impact on their immediate surroundings, nor do they emit very many greenhouse gas emissions. And even on the broader scale, the country of the Philippines is not responsible for the issue at hand. You can see here that the USA, according to Oxford University, is responsible for nearly 1/4 of all emissions in history. But then if you break it down even further and look at individual emissions per person, you'll notice that there is not much justice, as countries like Australia and the USA have individual emissions over 13 times as the average Filipino. And then remarkably, lower emissions per person often is on par with a country's poverty index too, meaning that they cannot afford to adapt or show resilience against increasing natural disasters.
Kami bahay. Wasak.
Ayun, siyakin ko pula ko ka.
Hanggang ngayon, ang buhay namin, wala. Gumagapang na lang kahit mahirap ng kami. Ang problema ko, itong pagtindog ng bahay,
So with so much to lose, but more importantly, so much still to save, we all have the incredible opportunity to act, and to act now.
So Obama's talking about all of this with the global warming and that, and a lot of it's a hoax. It's a hoax. I mean, it's a money-making industry, okay? It's a hoax.
I cannot stress how important that your voice is, whether it's a conversation, a protest, a social media post, a letter to your political or governmental representative. Your voice is so important. The matter has become urgent. We can no longer rely or have the ideology that someone else will do it. We all have a voice and we must use it. 30 Filipinos died fighting for the environment in 2018. If you live in a Western country where that doesn't happen, what excuse do we have? And with the physical pollution, we can cut back on plastic straws and water bottles. But throughout this beach clean, we only found one plastic straw. So we have to consider how else might we be damaging the ocean. And recent research published has said that 46% of all ocean pollution comes from discarded fishing gear. And on that note, with climate change, we can do so much at the individual level, but many studies have made it very clear that one of the biggest things we can do to reduce our emissions is to reduce our meat consumption. It's important that this is not achievable or pragmatic for everyone, but to those who can, Reducing your meat intake and shifting to more of a plant-based diet, eating seasonally and locally, you can more than halve your dietary emissions. Now, to those who can, it's far better than this. So we, as a human species, all of us, need to remember that we are not defending nature, we are nature defending ourselves.